What's up, guys? Welcome back to Airbnb ABCs. I'm very happy to have you guys here today because we're going to talk about how in 2025 we are keeping our calendars full. This has been a point of a lot of discussion in a lot of owners groups and a lot of social media groups revolving around short-term rentals. That this, especially this summer of 2025, when things should be going absolutely gangbusters out there, that they're having trouble keeping their calendars full, and we have made some changes to allow us to try to keep our calendars as full as possible. They're not bursting at the seams like they were in 2021, 2022. Those are kind of the COVID years that I always consider when people say it's, a return to the pre-COVID levels. That's when the free money from the government was raining in. People were looking to travel outside of hotels, outside of group settings. So, short-term rentals such as Airbnbs and VRBOs, where it's just the house, were absolutely killing it. 2023 and 2024, I would consider more normal years because we were kind of outside that COVID range. And really up to about May 2025, which is when we really felt the brakes being pushed on. And we had to make a lot of changes to the way that we were doing things to try to keep ourselves booked up to that 80% level. And the first thing that we want to look at is what we were doing previously. And this is in the aggressive Airbnb and short-term rental host market. What our pricing strategy had been prior to this is we had premiums on far out dates. So as your dates got farther out, the percentage increased, I think, up to about 20%. And it was whatever we had in Price Labs as far as their default pricing for their far out premiums. And that would enable us to get some of these golden bookings down the road that were extremely high priced and really, boosted our profit margin. Then as things got in towards, about the 30 to 60 days out, it got to about the price that we wanted it to be, that we felt like was where it was going to book at. And then as it got closer, then the prices went back up because there was a shortage of places to stay. So you either had people that really wanted to stay at your place and were willing to pay a premium for it, or folks that booked in the typical 6 to 8 week window that most vacations are booked at, and that was at irregular prices. And then as things got scarcer, the prices would go back up. That has not worked for 2025 as of May. And so we've went ahead and changed it. And if you guys are using price software out there like Price Labs, Wheelhouse, anything, I have found that these pricing softwares are not nimble enough, and they're not doing enough to price these things correctly in order to get them to sell. And you're going to have to work harder at it manually in 2025, and I would assume in 2026, unless there's some sort of major economic improvement such as massive rate cuts or people just have a much better sentiment on the economy, you're going to have to get in here and manually price these things yourselves in a lot of cases and do a lot of adjustments and really be hands-on with your software in order to get where you want to be. But the first thing that we need to talk about before any of that is the basics. If your listing is not the best that it can possibly be, the best photos, the best listing picture, the cover photo when people are scrolling, the best copy, if you don't have all of your big amenities right there in the first thing that they see on the page, you need to go fix that first. If your place doesn't have all the amenities that it needs to have to compete in the market that you are in, you need to go fix that first. If you're in the Smokies and you don't have a hot tub, you need to fix that first. If you don't have some sort of arcade game, you need to fix that first. There are these one-up arcade games that we've been using for years now. They are relatively inexpensive. People love them. It's going to get your place booked before a place that does not have it. If you're not using professional photographs that highlight all the amenities, and you're still using those cell phone pictures that worked in 21, in 22, in 23, you need to get that fixed. If you don't do these things, none of this stuff is going to make any difference because they are going to come to my listing and not yours because you don't have these things. So with that being said, with the basics out of the way, what we are doing on pricing is, in general, we are just only going for what we think that the place can book for. We have completely taken out of the equation any far out pricing. We have completely disabled that in Price Labs algorithm. And now I am not a huge fan of Price Labs new algorithm since they got their hyper local pricing in. And I know that you can go back to the old algorithm, but it still doesn't feel like the old algorithm. I feel like they are pricing dates that have a higher anticipated occupancy or higher historical occupancy, far higher than they are ever going to rent for. We are seeing, on these non-major holidays. So when I think of major holidays, I'm thinking Christmas, Thanksgiving, the 4th of July, Memorial Day, those sorts of things where people travel a lot. There's other holidays that come up in local events that they will price essentially the same as those. And so our 2-bedroom, 2-bath cabins are being priced at like $450 for these, lesser holidays or lesser events, such as just like local events in the area. And I've really had to come in and just really temper their expectations on that. I think they're doing that to try to get more, to sell you that they are going to be able to get more revenue for you, but it is not working. And so we've taken out all of that, all of those far out pricing premiums. And what we're looking for is to try to get what we can in the future, because what I have found is about 50% of our calendar is booking out in the future farther than 30 days. And those are typically higher price bookings. They are taking up the higher price weekends. They're taking up the higher price holidays, and you're able to get those booked because you are not overpricing them super duper far out in the future. And then once you come into the kind of the meat of the booking season, which is about 30 to 60 days outside of where you are at right now, I would go ahead and let the software price those down and then really let it kind of do its thing, where it's adjusting for how occupied you are, what the seasonality of it is, what the booking window is looking like, and all the other things that it should be doing automatically, but maybe is not. Another thing that we've been doing is making sure that our base rates are actually in line with what the pricing software is doing. When we went to that hyperlocal pricing on Price Labs, it made our rates just ridiculous using the exact same base rates that we had with the older algorithm. And what I had to do was go in and just, again, bring those down, temper that expectation for this program, because it is not selling our place at these prices that they are pushing out there. And I think trying to get hosts kind of hooked on like, wow, I can get $450 for this, when it's not going to happen. You're going to get like $250 or $275 or maybe even $199, something like that. But we really had to bring down we had to manipulate the software to fit the reality of the situation right now. So once we got inside that booking window, then you would find, I found that like another 25% of the calendar would end up filling in at these prices that are adjusted to what's happening right now. So you get your 50% out front, 25% right now, and now we have that other 25% that's laying out there. These are going to be like your Sunday, Monday stays, probably your midweek stays, things of that nature. And on those, we are within like 7 to 10 days. If those are not booking, I might go ahead and, like 2 weeks out, start reducing the price, start saying, minus 5%, minus 10%. And I'll do that every single day. I'll bring it down like another 5%. If we get into 7 to 10 days, 7 at the farthest out, and it is still not booked, and that's something that I want to get booked, and I'm not scheduling maintenance, I want that off my calendar, immediately to the lowest price that I'm gonna take for these things. And I have found that is going to book pretty rapidly after that. And so that is what we're doing for pricing this year. No far out premiums. Let the software do its thing within about 30 to 60 days. If you have adjusted your base rates to reflect the actual reality of things coming up. And then once we get inside, 2 weeks, start gradually bringing the price down. And then once we're within like a week, just straight to the bottom to what we are willing to accept. Now for us, that may be a lot less than it is for a lot of you guys out there. I know a lot of you have really high mortgage payments. We have relatively low overhead on our places. We have 2 with like $2,400 a month mortgages. We have another with a $3,500 a month mortgage payment. And so those ones with the $2,400 a month, we could probably rent these places for $100 a night if we filled 30 nights a month, and we'd probably still make a little bit of money. So we have a lot of room to work. So you need to figure out what like your bottom line is, and your bottom line may be lower than your break-even numbers that you've figured out in your spreadsheet that you did 100 times. But putting $150 in the bank is better than putting $0 in the bank. But there does become a time where that does become problematic, and I found that it's somewhere around $125. You start getting all sorts of requests, inquiries that are just shady, and you don't really want those sorts of guests. And so that's where I've sort of found for the cabins that we have for the 2-bedroom, 2-baths, around like 125 is where you start getting into trouble with riffraff. So guys, that's what I have to say that we are doing right now in 2025 to keep these places, at the 80% plus occupied mark and still making money. This may work for you. It may only have worked for me. If you're watching this at the end of 2025, things may be different, or some other time, things may be different. And the thing is that nothing will ever stay the same. You guys need to constantly be adjusting what you're doing and always making the adjustments in order to try to get the most revenue, keep your places booked, keep making money, and hopefully we'll be back in the boom times, before we know it.